Now, let's get into Colorado State. And guys, if I had to give you a team that they resemble out of the conference we just left, the old Texas Tech team with Cliff Kingsbury, Mike Leach type system, they want to air the crap out of the football. They don't run the football. For example, I'll just throw this in here, getting a little bit ahead of my skis. They bring their second leading rusher back from last year. He had 311 yards rushing. I believe the first leading rusher is gone. He rushed for 390 yards. They do not. They don't run the football. So they are going to air it out. And I actually kind of like this. It gets your secondary ready. And guess what? That second week versus Michigan, we'll know if the front seven's ready. So back-to-back weeks, you're going to get one side of your back four, back seven tested, and then your front seven tested versus Michigan. So overall, good way to start the season. Let's jump into Colorado State. 5-7 last year for the Rams. 3-5 overall in the Mountain West Conference, 26.1 points per game. They were 76th in the country on that side of the ball. They allowed 29.6 points per game, which is 98 out of 133 teams. And when we get to that side of the ball, it's pretty grim. But again, the offense. So last year, here we go, 91.1 yards per game rushing last year, 123rd in the country. Guys, there's 133 FBS teams that this was taken out of last year. They're in the bottom of 11. That is bad. They get 3.3 yards per rush, 116th in the country. Again, abysmal. Now the passing game, 291.3 yards per game, 17th in the country. Yards per attempt, 6.9, so 80th in the country. So honestly, they're really not attacking downfield very often. And when they do, they're not doing it successfully. This is very much an efficient style offense. Completion rate was 60.81%, 67th in the country. Now, let's get into this position players. Brandon Fowler-Nicolosi. I watched this guy play versus Colorado, and I was impressed. I didn't know much about Colorado State at all, and they had a lot of guys stand out to me. A couple of those guys transferred. A couple of the guys went in the NFL draft. This guy stuck around. There were reports he was offered $600,000. I'm not sure I believe that because, no offense, I'm not sticking around at Colorado State. I know it's beautiful. Colorado State's beautiful. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Colorado Springs. Beautiful, beautiful place. Probably one of the 10 to 15 most beautiful places in the country. I'm not sticking around for $600,000. If Kansas State's offering me that, I'm going to Kansas State. And Kansas State, why are you offering this guy when I think Avery Johnson can be just as good as this guy? 62.1% completion percentage, 3,460 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 132.6 passer rating. He needs to take care of the football better. If Colorado State wants any chance in this game, he has to take care of the football better. He does scramble a bit. He's athletic. I will say the last time I saw him, skinny frame. He needs to put weight on his frame. I think he's an NFL player as he progresses. I don't know if he doesn't put on weight, he's not. He's got to put on weight. He's very skinny. You know what he kind of reminds me of body type wise? Colin Kaepernick at Nevada. He's a better passer than Colin Kaepernick, not as good of a scrambler, but that's who he reminds me of. As mentioned before, Justin Marshall's their second leading returning rusher, and he will be the main rusher this year. 57 attempts, 311 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, 22 yards receiving. So they just don't use the running backs at all, whether that be in the passing game or the running game. A lot like Mike Leach, he just refused to use his running backs in any scenario. They will use this guy because this guy might be the best wide receiver we play all year. I'm trying to think. Georgia doesn't have a guy as good as this. Michigan doesn't have a guy as good as this. Oklahoma, maybe with Deion Burks and Nick Anderson. By the way, Nick Anderson listed as an or for Oklahoma shocked me. If Brennan Thompson takes his job, I'm completely off the Nick Anderson train, but I thought he was good last year. But Torrey Horton is an NFL guy. I think he's a second-round draft pick. I don't think he gets up into the first round, but I think he's a second-round guy. 96 catches, 1,136 yards, and 11.8 yards per catch. I'm very interested to see how Texas defends him. Do they mirror him with Malik Muhammad all over the field? Do they give Jadavier and Gavin Holmes that responsibility when he lines up on the other side? We will see. I don't know how they attack that. I don't know how Colorado State uses to attack him. Will they put him in motion a lot? We will see. It's going to be very interesting. Hell of a player. They also bring back Dylan Goffney with 23 receptions, 298 yards, and 13 yards per catch with 2 touchdowns. And they bring over transfer wide receiver. I was a big fan of this guy because I talked about Cincinnati last year because they were in the Big 12. Donovan Ollie from Washington State had like 800 yards 2 years ago at Washington State. He fell off at Cincinnati last year. We'll see if he can get it back together in this offense in Jay Norvell with the Colorado State Rams. We will have to see, but I'm a fan of him. I think he can be an NFL wide receiver. I'm not saying he's Torrey Horton because I think Torrey Horton's a second-round pick. I think he's more of a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick, but I think he's an NFL guy for sure. They do lose their second leading receiver in Dallin Hooker. He was at tight end. He had over 700 yards receiving last year. I'm glad he's gone. He's a real threat, and we kind of struggled with the tight end last year. I don't think that'll be the case this year because Anthony Hill has that responsibility, or Maurice Blackwell if he's healthy, and I trust those guys in pass coverage versus a tight end. Most tight ends, week 2, we'll have to discuss that, John, because I don't know if I trust them versus that tight end, but we'll have to see. They do have first team Mountain West Conference preseason Jacob Gardner at the center position, and they do replace that tight end with Peter Mortini. He didn't do much last year, though. 3 receptions, 21 yards. I like the interior of this offensive line. Tanner Morley, Jacob Gardner, and Drew Moss are good players. I think they have a chance to go to the next level. Savion Henderson, decent player. We'll see how he holds up. Aaron Karras, okay player. We'll see how he holds up. The interior is actually pretty good here. So I kind of like the Texas interior defensive line versus their interior of their offensive line because it is their strength on the offensive line. So if we're constantly blowing them up on the interior of the offensive line, guys, that is a good thing for Texas defensive line. This is a decent middle of the road interior of offensive line, college football wise. The edges are questionable. If Trey Moore is just killing them, listen, do I think Trey Moore's going to have a great year? But they're not the greatest. So I wouldn't take too much away for that. I will take away if we do kill them on the interior. Now I'll get to your comments, and then we will talk about their defense, which is not much to write home about. Myron Charles, who? I don't know what that question is. Rob, I don't know if you're joking. Myron Charles is a current defensive lineman commit for Florida State. I think he could flip to Texas. But yes, so let me take a drink first, then we'll get back to Colorado State. Okay, so Colorado State, we just covered the offense. Let's cover the defense here. Not very good, guys. They were 90th in the country in rushing yards per game given up, 166.3. They were 52nd in yards per rush, so they were better versus that. Overall, they were terrible, but versus the rush, slightly above average at 4.1 yards per rush, which ranked 52nd in the country. Their passing defense allowed 72.19% completion percentage. Anyone want to take a guess how bad that is? 72%? 72%. That is god-awful, guys. That is last in the country. 72% last year is last. Total passing yards allowed per game, 255.5, 111th in the country. I actually think Texas was similar in the yards per game allowed here. They were just much more efficient in defending it. First off, they put up stats on you somewhat in the rushing game, and then you're terrible on the back end in the receiving or stopping the receiving game. They allowed a passer rating of 150.7. That is 115th in the country. And then opponent yards per play, 98th in the country. This defense is not good. They also allowed I already went over that. So just not a good defense whatsoever. Texas, to me, if we're not efficient offensively, that's not a good thing. We have to be efficient in this game attacking this defense. They lack the personnel to be able to stop you. Their safeties are really good. The cornerbacks are below average. They lost, by the way, their Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. Muhammad Kamara is in the NFL now. He had 13 sacks last year. So think about that. You had the Defensive Player of the Year on your defensive line. That should help you in the pass game and the run game, and they were terrible, and you lose that guy. Efficiency. That I don't care about hitting big plays, honestly, versus this team, because I think I know what they're going to do. They're going to try to keep things in front of them. I need to see efficiency. If Quinn Ewers has anything less than 68% completion percentage versus this team, it's a failure, in my opinion. This is not a good defense. It's not. We should maul them at the line of attack, at the point of attack. We should be efficient when we do throw, and we should be able to get 7 to 10 yards per completion pretty damn easily. So that's my takeaway on Colorado State's defense. They do have they have their top 4 leading tacklers back, or they have all 4 of their top leading tacklers back, 3 out of 4. Sorry again. Chase Wilson, Very good player. He was first on the team or second on the team in tackles last year. He's a first team Mountain West Conference player preseason at the linebacker position. They bring in Henry Blackburn, who I don't know if anyone remembers this. He's the guy that hit Travis Hunter. He's a good player, though. He was their fourth leading tackler. And then their best player, in my opinion, is their other safety in Jack Howell, first team Mountain West Conference preseason. Their leading tackler with 114 tackles. The problem with that, guys, you never want your safeties to be your leading tacklers, ever, unless they're playing in the box. That's the only exception. If they're back there in pass protection, that means you're getting beat deep, or you're allowing your front two levels of defense to get beat, and they run back there, and they have to make the tackle. They're the last line of defense. That is terrible by Colorado State. Like I said, I need to see efficiency out of this Texas offense. Listen, Colorado State's probably going to put up points in this game. We should put up at least 38 points. That should be the minimum, because I do think we're going to experiment with some things. Sark has already talked about that, and we're going to get into your comments, and then we'll get into what Steve Sarkisian had to say about this game, and then we're going to get my total opinions on this game and my prediction as well. Rob Midfield, yeah, no problem. I'm here to help you guys out with any of that. Obviously, yes, Myron Charles at Florida State could be flipping to Texas. We'll see. I think there's a chance, pretty damn good chance. We should be able to move the ball up and down the field against Colorado State. Yes. What I think they're going to do is just going to keep everything in front of them. So I need to see efficiency in the run game and the pass game. We should run, I'm thinking, for over 5.5 yards per carry. And I would love to see Quinn's passing yards per attempt to be around the 9 to 10 mark. I think that's where he should be at, with like a 68% completion percentage or higher. 100%. Victor, we talked about this in the preseason preview in the offseason with the Michigan guys. This is going to be very vanilla. We're going to rotate a lot of players, but still, our backups would be good enough to win this game by 2+ touchdowns. So let's see what happens. He has to, when his QB is slow, and read and react. Yeah, I don't think that's why we're going to keep things vanilla. We didn't keep things vanilla versus Alabama. I see where you're coming from. I would say that's more on, I would say somewhat on Quinn's vision to be able to see stuff, but also he has great anticipation. So I think that's only the case sometimes. I think a lot of the case, most of the time, guys, is confidence. And I think you've seen Quinn become more confident off the field, which will translate to him being more confident on the field, because he would see things sometimes, but he wouldn't pull the trigger on it. So I think that's more confidence than anything. So let's get into what Sark says, and then we'll get into my thoughts. So Sark wants to see no self-inflicted wounds in this game, and I completely agree. When you are playing a inferior team, which Colorado State is, do not shoot yourself in the foot and give them opportunities to beat you. Do I think even if we shot ourselves in the foot, they could beat us? Absolutely not. But still, you don't want that. You're building habits going through the season. Let's start out strong. No false starts. No. By the way, Jake Majors does this. Snap infractions. I don't want to see that shit. You're a senior. He shouldn't have been. I think he did it once or twice last year. That needs to be gone. Jumping off. You know what? That's the one I don't care about. You want to jump off sides to get a pass rush. It's going to happen once or twice if you're a great pass rusher. I saw Von Miller do it for the Broncos a lot. Guess what? I can live with that. But no false starts. No face mask, stupid penalties, holding. Just don't do any of that stuff. You're playing an inferior team. You should treat them as an inferior team. You should beat them down and beat them at the line of attack. And no false starts, none of that stupid stuff. If you were in the 2 deep, you will play in the first half. Sark talked about this. We played 32 or 33 guys on the defensive side of the ball versus Rice in the first game. I actually expect that to go up. I'm thinking 35, 36 guys versus Colorado State. And I think you're going to see a lot of guys on offense. He basically said he wouldn't shot. Someone asked him, will Arch Manning play in the first half? I think if we're up by 3+ touchdowns, you'll see Arch Manning go out there for a series. And I have no issue with that. Again, Sark has talked about this is a long season in college football. You need a true 44 guys and not a true 22 guys. So I think you're going to see a lot of backups playing this game, even if it's a little bit closer than people think. I think the closest I could see this game being late is like 17 points, which would it be disappointing? Yes. I was disappointed in the Rice outing last year, and we beat Alabama week 2. So again, I'm not going to take a lot from this game. When we get into my thoughts, I'll explain that. And then someone asked him, how is your run game going to change because of the running backs that are out? And he said, no, we're going to run it between the tackles. And I try to tell people he's not going to change his offense. Jaden Blue can run in between the tackles. Jaden Blue is not some 170-pound back. I believe he weighs in at 205, 210 pounds, and he's 6 foot. And he was the #1 ranked running back recruit, 2 to 3 years ago when he came out, until he decided to sit out a senior year. Then he dropped to 4th or 5th. But this guy's supremely talented. He's a great pass catcher. He was decent in run blocking grade. He was actually had a better run blocking or pass blocking grade than Cedric Baxter when in the backfield pass protecting. So I think he'll be fine. Can we sustain another injury there? Absolutely not. We're super thin. We just brought in that guy from SMU last year, Velshon or Velton Gardner. So he'll be our 4th string running back. I do think at the end of the year, Jarrett Gibson will take most of the 2nd string running back reps because I think Trey Wisner, no offense to him, is more of a scat back. I don't think he would last, honestly, if he got the second amount of reps at running back. But I do trust in Jaden Blue. And then he said, be better on 1st and 2nd downs to get to easier 3rd downs. And I completely agree with this. We want to stay in the 3 to 4, or 3rd and 4 to 3rd and 5 at most range. We weren't terrible at 3rd down last year. We were okay. We were middle of the road, but we need to get better there. The one other thing we definitely need to get better on, guys, is in the red zone. We scored 80-point-something% of our possessions in the red zone. We ranked 89th in the country in that. Anyone want to know what Iowa was ranked in the country in red zone scoring, percentage-wise? 90th. We were 1 spot ahead of Iowa, but we ranked 15th in the country in scoring. If we can just go back to 2 years ago where I believe we were in the 20s or 30s, we were in the late teens, early 20s, and then 3 years ago we were in the 30s. If we can be honestly 20 to 40 range, this is a top 10 offense easily. So that's another aspect I want to see them get better at. And that leads into my keys or thoughts for the game, guys. So again, I want to see efficiency. I don't need to see big plays down the field. But when you do take the shots down the field, I need you to hit them. When I see Quinn is great at this. Quinn is great in the intermediate and short passing game. I want you to be efficient at that, just like you always are. Nothing needs to change there. So efficiency in the passing game, efficiency in the running game. I want to see who takes the field the majority of snaps at the 2nd cornerback position. And I would love to see our 2nd cornerback, honestly, put up against Torrey Horton for Colorado State to get them ready. It's going to be interesting. It's probably either going to be Jahdae Barron or Gavin Holmes. Would not shock me if they completely split reps here. And then it wouldn't shock me if we see Warren Roberson or Kobe Black get some playing time as well. But I think those guys, the majority of snaps, honestly, at that position need to go to Jahdae Barron or Gavin Holmes, especially to Jahdae Barron. It's a new position for him. Nickelback is completely different than an outside cornerback. I'm excited to see Jalen Gilbo play in this game as well. I cannot wait to see. I want to see the NASCAR package a lot in this game because guess what? You're playing against a team that's not super efficient at all, and they love to pass the ball. I want to see you get them to 3rd and 7+ and put out Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Ethan Burke, all those, Anthony Hill, and rush the passer. I want to see it. I'm going to love that when I see it because those guys are going to be able to get the quarterback pretty effortlessly. And I want to see us be able to keep the ball in front of us. Last year, teams destroyed us with the downfield passing game. I don't have to point to any other game than the Washington game. That was consistently our cornerbacks getting beat one-on-one on an island. Were they there? Yes, they were. The problem is they never turned their head around and never played the ball. Now, it will help that we actually have 2 true cornerbacks playing at the position this year, whereas Ryan Watts, I told you guys, was a safety playing corner. And guess what? He's a safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Terrence Brooks is now at Illinois. When he does go to the NFL, because I think he's talented enough to go to the NFL, he's going to be a safety too. So we have 2 safeties playing cornerback. We're much more athletic there. I want to see the athleticism on display in the back end in this game because guess what? They're going to throw it around, and I want to see us running the football, make tackles, and I want to see us to make plays on the football. I shouldn't say this. I'm not going to say it. I will do something crazy if we actually play the ball while it's in the air versus an elite wide receiver like Torrey Holton. If we're in phase, turn around and knock the ball down, I'll go crazy, guys, more than I should versus the Colorado State team. But that's something we have not done here at Texas for a very long time. I do think we keep this rather vanilla. I think we rotate a lot of guys, but I do think it's very important for Steve Sarkisian to get guys confidence up high. Like our wide receivers, I would like us to rotate the 6, obviously, but I want a firm grasp going to the Michigan game who our main 3 is. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and throughout the season, it's just going to be 6 guys. But Sark has yet to do that, so I'd love to get a grasp on who it is going to the Michigan game at the wide receiver position are the main 3 guys, but we'll have to see about that. So we will finally get into my predictions here, guys. I don't have Texas covering here. 48-17. I think Colorado State doesn't really score that much in the first half. I think if they score most of their points in the second half, could be completely wrong here when we're rotating more. But I do think Texas wins 48-17. That's 31 points. I believe the spread is 32.5. I would take Colorado State personally, but I could be wrong. I don't know. That's such a tight spread, and I don't love big numbers. I personally wouldn't bet it, but if you're going to force me to, I would bet Colorado State here, just like I would have taken Rice last year, and I think I would have won that bet because Texas is going to come out vanilla. They've been game planning for Michigan. No matter what Sark says, he's been spending most of his time on Michigan, game planning for that game. I think it's very vanilla. I think it's very basic. I think you're going to see a lot of guys play, and I think you're going to see some exciting stuff out of the guys that do play, especially the second and third stringers or second and third stringers, because I think there's very little difference at certain positions between first and second string. There's definitely drop-off from second to third string. We're not Georgia in that aspect, where I do agree with Mark 1 through 100. Georgia's probably the most talented team, but I would put Texas top 40 versus anyone in the country. I really would. So it's going to be interesting to see those guys play.